All right, there's a lot of news with regard to Ukraine. Let's start with this piece. Go ahead and put this up on the screen. So what you're looking at here is Vladimir Putin driving a car around the occupied city of Mariupol. That, of course, Ukrainian city, was really devastated by the Russian attack. My understanding here is there's some little banter between him and whoever his henchman is about, what's being reconstructed and how's the airport doing,
He's just like us, Krystal. He can drive a car.
Right, he's
even driving a Toyota.
I mean, some of this is actually kind of hilarious to see because it's obviously very clearly staged.
Oh, yeah.
He, goes to somebody's apartment
in the middle of the night.
Yeah, this is at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
And it's oh, it's just a surprise visit. They have a whole buffet spread laid out for him.
Probably caviar and champagne.
Yeah. So I got our friend Yegor to take a look at these and tell me what they were saying and talking about whatever. And there was actually one of the videos in the background, you could faintly hear someone in the original post of the video say, "This is all fake." When they first posted it, and then they edited that out ultimately. Amazing. But anyway, he's trying to display, it's kind of a show of force, especially after, let's put this next piece up on the screen. The International Criminal Court has issued an arrest warrant for Putin. Now, the ICC is kind of toothless, in part because we don't participate. So obviously none of our war criminals have been held to account by the ICC. No one expects Putin is actually going to be arrested and held accountable for alleged war crimes. But, this is kind of a symbolic show. And one other thing just to keep in mind about the ICC, which has made it, lose a lot of credibility. They have only ever tried Africans at this court. So any other war crimes or atrocities around the world have not been subject to ICC prosecution. So a symbolic move here.
I saw a lot of Atlantic Council neo-libs be like, this is a strong move by the international community. And I'm just like, look, international law is fake. The only law that can be enforced between states is violence. I don't wish that to be the case, but it is simply the truth. It's like whenever we have the World Trade Organization and then the great powers sign up and not a single one of them actually abides by the WTO. And then the smaller nations try to and they get screwed. And then they end up being just pawns of greater powers. Empire will always exist. It will simply exist in different forms. I'm sorry to say it. With the ICC, as you say, there's a reason that we don't support it or sign up to it because we don't want our soldiers, our generals, our presidents, and our leaders to ever be subject to the same thing. Well, right, but actually, leaders. Well, there have been past cases, right, where the ICC will look at generals and African and the U.S. military and others are like, no, the ultimate decider of whether the U.S. military did right or wrong will be the president of the United States and the universal, what is it, the UCMJ? I forget exactly what it stands for, but the Court of Military Justice instead of any ICC. There's another reason why we don't abide by, for example, the international law of the sea, because we're like, yeah, in de facto we agree, but in time of war, we'll see, maybe. And look, all countries.
I wish we lived in a world where leaders could consistently be held to account around the world for the atrocities and crimes that they commit. Sadly, we do not live in that world.
And we probably never will. Sorry. The entire Wilsonian idea of all of this, I'm not saying cooperation and all that is not good. It certainly is in some cases. But as this shows, what is this? And actually, all that's really happened is that it's worsening tension, if possible, between Washington and Moscow, because now, what is Russia's message to its people and for the people who are supporting the war? This isn't a global NATO, U.S.-led plot against us, to constrain us, to prosecute us, to isolate us. So was an ICC warrant based on that? Nobody here is defending the actions of the Russian military in Ukraine, but we're just simply pointing out that politically, since this isn't going to happen, what is the actual utility of this? Joe Biden came out and said, quote, I think it's justified, saying that the U.S. is not even signed up for the ICC, but it makes a very strong point saying that Putin has clearly committed war crimes. It's interesting, too, that this just passed with any real consternation, where the original declaration of Putin as a war criminal, even many people in Washington saw that as a point of no return, because it's like, okay, now what are you going to do about it?
How are you going to negotiate with this
Remember
person?
this, too, which is the way that we've boxed ourselves in, basically post-Rwanda and all of that, is anytime we see anything, with Rwanda and Kosovo, we are going to go in, and if we have the ability to try and stop it. And it's like, well, then the follow-on question is so does that mean that we can ever have proper relations with the Putin government ever again? That doesn't sound like a very good starting point for any sort of negotiations. Now, wouldn't say that it's not like we haven't called people war criminals in the past, and then restored full relations whenever they happen to be useful, let's say, in a fight against communism. So it's not like the precedent there doesn't exist, but given like the neoliberal brain of here in Washington, and specifically, we can't underestimate the view in Moscow of this as a point of no return of Moscow's relations with the international community. It sets a bad precedent, I think.
Yeah, and we're going to talk in a minute about the 20-year anniversary of the Iraq War invasion, something that Putin has invoked in terms of our own lawless behavior in justifying his own illegal invasion. Not that those things make any sense, but you know, you can also look very clearly at all of the war criminals here that were involved in the Iraq War and the horrors that unfolded on the Iraqi people and ultimately on the entire region in some ways in the world. They're all like wealthier than ever. They were certainly never held to account. So you can imagine him using similar rhetoric around, you know, exactly how consistent we are in our calling out of war crimes and atrocities.
Yeah, I've told that story before, but, you know, apparently George W. Bush would lecture Putin on democracy, and Putin would just look at him. He speaks perfect English. He'd be like, "We do not want the same democracy as you have given Iraq." And everyone in the room was like,
Fair.
Fair point.
Fair.
Yeah.
Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Saagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.